Here is a complete YouTube story script, around 1700 words, written in one part, with a dramatic hook, emotional pacing, viewer engagement requests, and a daytime cinematic setting. Writing. Heiress fired the night guard. Minutes later, he saved her from a $500 million heist. At exactly 9:12 on a bright Tuesday morning, one careless decision almost destroyed a $500 million empire. A young heiress stood inside her towering glass headquarters and fired a quiet old night guard without knowing that within minutes, he would become the only reason she would survive the biggest robbery attempt in her company's history. Before we begin, if you believe kindness and second chances can change lives, please like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel Echoes the Stories to support more heart-touching stories like this one. 28-year-old Arabella Quinn was one of the youngest business heiresses in America. She inherited Quinn Dynamics, a global technology company worth billions of dollars, after her father passed away 3 years earlier. She was intelligent, disciplined, and ambitious, but there was one thing she had slowly lost over the years. She had forgotten how to see people beyond their job titles. Her world had become meetings, contracts, investor calls, and endless pressure. Every decision carried enormous weight, and she believed emotions only weakened leaders. Every morning, she arrived at the headquarters in downtown Chicago, a massive silver skyscraper surrounded by fountains and polished stone pathways. That same morning, 70-year-old Theodore Hayes sat quietly in his security office after finishing another 12-hour night shift. Theodore had worked as a night guard for 17 years. He never complained. He never arrived late. He greeted every employee with warmth and remembered every person's birthday. Many employees loved him, but to Arabella, he was simply another name on a payroll sheet. A week earlier, consultants had advised her to cut expenses and replace older workers with modern automated systems. Theodore's name appeared on the list. As she walked into the security office, sunlight poured through the windows. Theodore slowly stood up and smiled politely. Arabella handed him an envelope. She informed him his position was being terminated immediately because the company was moving toward fully automated security operations. Theodore accepted the envelope without anger. He simply nodded with a gentle sadness in his eyes. He gathered his belongings into a small worn leather bag. Inside were family photographs, an old watch, and a notebook where he recorded security observations every night. Many employees secretly watched the scene with disappointment. Theodore had no family left nearby. His wife had passed away years earlier, and his son lived overseas. This job was more than a paycheck. It gave him purpose. Yet he left without bitterness. As he stepped outside into the sunny courtyard, something unusual caught his attention. For 17 years, Theodore had trained himself to notice tiny details others ignored. 3 delivery trucks parked near the west entrance looked unfamiliar. The logos on their sides were slightly incorrect. One driver wore a company badge attached upside down. Another man kept touching an earpiece while pretending to unload equipment. His instincts immediately sounded an alarm. Theodore stopped walking. He opened his notebook and checked the day's delivery schedule he had memorized from the previous night. There were no scheduled deliveries for that hour. Something was terribly wrong. Inside the building, Arabella had already moved on to her next meeting. She sat with executives discussing a major merger that would increase company assets to over $500 million. No one noticed several men quietly entering service corridors. Theodore quickly turned around. Technically, he was no longer an employee. He could have walked away. He could have said it was no longer his responsibility. But 17 years of loyalty could not disappear in a single moment. He rushed toward the front desk. A new automated security station blocked his access. The temporary staff member dismissed his concerns, believing he was simply upset about losing his job. Theodore didn't argue. Instead, he ran outside and circled toward the west side loading dock. His heart pounded heavily. He saw one of the men opening a concealed compartment inside a truck. Inside were sophisticated electronic devices designed to disable communication systems. This wasn't an ordinary robbery. This was a carefully planned corporate heist. The thieves intended to steal proprietary technology worth $500 million. Theodore immediately pulled out his old emergency radio. Though disconnected from company systems, its local frequency still worked. He transmitted an emergency alert directly to city authorities. Then he ran back inside. Meanwhile, inside the boardroom, every screen suddenly went black. The lights flickered. Electronic doors locked automatically. Several masked individuals entered different sections of the building simultaneously. Employees screamed in fear. Panic spread everywhere. Arabella stood frozen. For the first time since becoming CEO, she felt genuine terror. The intruders knew exactly where to go. Someone had studied every security weakness. Within seconds, one of the men moved toward the boardroom carrying a digital hacking device. Arabella's hands trembled. Then she heard a familiar voice. Theodore appeared from the hallway. His breathing was heavy, but his eyes remained calm. He had memorized every emergency exit and maintenance tunnel in the building over 17 years. Without hesitation, he guided Arabella and dozens of employees through a hidden service corridor. The group moved quickly. Theodore knew which elevators were disconnected and which stairwells remained accessible. Several times he changed directions to avoid armed intruders. His age no longer mattered. Experience had become their greatest weapon. Arabella watched him in disbelief. The man she had dismissed an hour earlier was risking his life to save hers. At one point, they reached a locked steel door. Theodore smiled softly. He remembered installing that door 16 years earlier during a renovation project. From memory, he entered the emergency override code. The door opened. Everyone safely entered an underground operations room. Arabella looked around. Over 60 employees were safe because of him. Outside, police vehicles began surrounding the building. The thieves realized their timing had been compromised. Several attempted to escape, but authorities quickly intercepted them. Within 30 minutes, the entire operation ended. The $500 million heist had failed. No employees were harmed. The danger was over. Inside the underground room, silence filled the air. Arabella slowly approached Theodore. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Tears gathered in her eyes. She realized something painful. She had become so focused on profits that she had forgotten the true value of human beings. Theodore wasn't just a security guard. He was a protector. A guardian. A man whose loyalty couldn't be measured by spreadsheets. Arabella apologized with a trembling voice. She admitted she had made a terrible mistake. Theodore simply smiled. He held no anger in his heart. He understood that pressure sometimes makes people forget what truly matters. Later that afternoon, under bright daylight, Arabella called every employee into the main lobby. News cameras had arrived outside. Everyone waited quietly. Arabella stood beside Theodore. For the first time since inheriting the company, she spoke not as a CEO but as a human being. She publicly announced that Theodore Hayes would become Director of Human Security Operations and an advisor to the entire company. She also canceled the automated replacement program. Employees erupted with applause. Many wiped tears from their eyes. Arabella then established a new company initiative that honored long-serving employees and provided mentorship opportunities for younger workers. Theodore's wisdom would now shape future generations. Weeks later, the entire atmosphere inside Quinn Dynamics had changed. Employees smiled more often. Departments worked together. People felt seen and appreciated. Arabella herself transformed. She began learning every employee's name. She visited different floors daily. She listened more than she spoke. And every morning, she shared coffee with Theodore before work. One sunny day, Arabella asked him why he came back after being fired. Theodore smiled while looking out the window at employees walking happily below. He explained that true responsibility doesn't disappear when someone stops paying you. It lives inside your character. It becomes part of who you are. Arabella never forgot those words. Years later, she framed them in the company lobby for everyone to read. Because in a world obsessed with numbers, one ordinary man's kindness had protected an empire worth $500 million. But even more importantly, he had saved a human heart from becoming permanently hardened. And perhaps that was the greatest victory of all. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who believes good people still exist in this world. Your support helps keep these meaningful stories alive. Special request: comment the words, "Kindness is never small," if you believe every person deserves respect, no matter their job title. Sometimes heroes do not wear expensive suits. Sometimes they carry old notebooks, worn leather bags, and years of quiet experience. Sometimes the people we overlook are the very people who will save us when life changes in a single moment. And perhaps today, this story is a reminder to all of us that kindness is never a weakness, respect costs nothing, and second chances can transform an entire future.